And 3. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to Conversations with Dee. I have my special guest, Dr. Laquala Dixon. She's a higher education administrator, entrepreneur, and former social worker, and an author as well. And she's from Flint, Michigan, hometown, born and raised, graduated from one of the best schools in Flint, Flint Central High. She has a doctoral degree in higher education, an MA degree and education and college student affairs leadership, a BA degree in sociology, and she's been honored by NASPA Sankofa Award as an award recipient in 2024. She is a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, the first Black Greek sorority formed in 1908. In 2024, she was recognized as a top 40 under 40 young alumni recipient at Jackson State University. And she has published in 2023 a journal article, Understanding the Interlocking Oppressive Systems Within I said it wrong. So hold on. It cut off. I'm sorry, my page cut off, y'all. Okay. Within higher education, restricting the professional progression of Black women. And I will tell y'all about that a little bit later. Okay. And also in 2022 to 2023, Stellar 50 Award recipient. She received that. She is also in 2023 championed the efforts to make Jackson State the first HBCU to host the National Association of Student Personnel Administrators, which is NASPA, Undergraduate Fellows Program, Dungy Leadership Institute. In 2021, Outstanding HBCU Minority Serving Institution Professional in Region 3 Award recipient as well. She has went on to launch a company. She is also a life coach as well. And hold on, I'm forgetting something else I put down. I memorize this stuff, y'all. I try to, y'all, for the most part. So if I'm forgetting something, I will always look because I will make sure I give everybody. Okay.
D, I'm like, I didn't send this stuff.
So I look. No, it was on your page. You put it on your page. So certified life and youth coach. She's an internationally published author, and she launched her company, which I said she launched the company, The Daddy's Girl. Okay. And yeah, so those are, and I'm probably missing a lot. She's done a lot, and she has a Black job. Yeah. And so basically I've been reaching out to her for a while. I told her I was like, it's been like, basically I was like, I basically wanted divine time to happen. I let divine time happen, y'all. And so this is the perfect time to celebrate her. And initially when I reached out to her, I was like, I want to have like a panel or something. But then I was like, nah, I don't want to do that, because I believe in letting people have their moment to talk about themselves. And that panel is not enough time, and that's not fair for somebody that's done a lot, done a stellar job. And I reached out to her and I said, I want to recognize you and honor you, celebrate you for 28 days of Black excellence and my podcast or whatnot. And so she said, yeah. And so that's what led to this. And also, higher education, commitment, community enrichment, educators or whatnot. So yeah, that's why we are here. And of course, so that's another part that I'm gonna say to y'all. And she represents the population of Black women, as we know, that are higher education administration. There are not a lot of us in that. It is a very extremely hard and competitive field to get into in terms of respect, garnering respect from your colleagues. We were talking about that earlier before we got on. And so her and I both understand, and a lot of people at home understand, that these things are real. that we experience. And so I was like, you know what, this is perfect because I can, celebrate her. And I appreciate having real people on. So Black women are underrepresented in higher education. We make up 4% of full-time faculty, 8% of leadership positions on average. White people are the most common ethnicity in higher education administration, making up 65% of administration jobs. 5.2% of tenured faculty at bachelor degree granting schools are Black. I got most of my statistics from Eric, ERIC, so y'all can Google this, okay? The American Association of University of Women has conducted a research that highlights the underrepresentation of Black women in higher education administration. And they are advocating, making sure that people are represented. There is a disparity that underscores the need for systemic changes in hiring, retention, and advancement practices to promote diversity and inclusion in higher education leadership. Additionally, Black women face significant financial challenges in higher education. More than 70% of Black students incur debt to finance their education, compared to 56% of the white students. Black women in particular graduate with a high student debt of $37,558 or more, which can impact their career and trajectories and opportunities for advancement. And this came from aauw.org. These findings highlight the systemic barriers Black women encounter in higher education, both as students and professionals, and emphasize the importance of targeted efforts to address these inequities. Another reason why DEI is very important. For those individuals who may not know, DEI, diversity, is the presence of the differences in identity such as race, ethnicity, gender, age, sexual orientation, disability, being a veteran, socioeconomic backgrounds. Equity is ensuring that there is fair opportunities and treatments and access across the board for all individuals, addressing systemic barriers and disparities. Inclusion is creating an atmosphere where all individuals feel valued, respected, and empowered to contribute. Accessibility means removing those barriers, means if they're physical, digital, and systemic, that prevent full participation, and especially for people with disabilities. And okay, we'll get to the other part later. So thank you so much. That's just some education for y'all at home. So, so y'all can look that up. So, how did your journey begin as an educator?
It depends on how I look at it. And I have to say thank you very much, Dee, for the invitation to be a part of this opportunity. I truly do appreciate it.
You're welcome.
I'm not quite sure where to start with that response, specifically because I can say that it likely started when I was in elementary school. Fun fact, I actually won my building 5th and 6th grade spelling bee at Doyle Ryder Elementary. And so it was during my elementary years that I loved writing. I loved editing. I loved proofreading. And my father was an educator in Flint Community School District. And people don't even know I was grading their papers if they had him for an English class. I was grading their papers in elementary school, and he was teaching high school. And so I had my red pen, and I'm editing, and I'm like, Dad, they don't even know how to write a complete sentence. Or it's too many grammatical errors. There's not the right punctuation. And he was impressed by that. And so I continued to grade some of his papers, and I just had the fire in me to actually enjoy writing, reading, and proofreading. And I'm still doing that in my professional career. And I will really say my father being an influence and being an educator, and me seeing him connect with the youth throughout the city of Flint was definitely the primary motivator for me becoming an educator.
And I can say that I was a student of her late father, Mr. Coleman. Mr. Coleman was my English teacher, and he really poured into his students. All of us had him, like literally. I mean, he is one of the main reasons why a lot of us knew about HBCUs. He ran the tour, the HBCU tour, making sure that we had the accessibility to know about these HBCUs. And
it was him and Miss Coleman, Camille Coleman.
Yep. Yes. Yep. Yep. And so, shout out to him, and late Miss Rosemary Ward, and late Dr. Askew, late Mr. Glenn Halsey, late Miss Renita Rump, another English teacher at Northern who has since passed, the late Mr. Anthony Young, Dr. Sharon J. Willis, Mr. Kenneth Muldrew, the band director at Flint Northern, okay, Mr. Guzak, the principal, Dr. Boyd Springer, who was my principal as well, Mr. Ginsburg, Mr. Bobian, Mrs. Preer, Miss Jolene Townsend. I have, hold on, let me get them out. Hold on. Okay. Miss Perina, Miss Deborah Bassett, Mr. Foster, Mr. Pleasant, Mr. Pickett. Mr. Pickens, I'm sorry, Mrs. Miss Peters, who taught physics at Northern for the magnet gifted program, which a lot of people from Central came over for and Southwestern came over for. Mr. Cosby, Mrs. Carpenter, who taught literary forms or something. Thank you, Miss Carpenter, for that. And Dr. Sandra Taylor, one of my educators, Dr. Bass, Dr. Glenn Johnson, Dr. Betty Clark, and Dean Cynthia Evers. Those are just a few people like I'm naming, and most of them are all Black. So that's very important to have representation, y'all. So you answered the question. So how did your early, you kind of answered this, like, how did your earlier experiences shape your passion for education and student advocacy? You kind of answered it a little bit, but going into, you talked about the grading the papers. So you answered it, because I kind of I threw that one in there. So you answered it before I came to this. Okay. So looking at those people's papers, those students' papers, and knowing that there were grammatical errors, how did you incorporate that into, what you're doing now in terms of in your journey? Like, what made you go after that by seeing that?
So I think it really started when I was in undergrad. I became a very involved student leader at Oakland University in Rochester, Michigan. I became very involved. I was involved in a number of leadership positions and organizations on campus. I also became a resident assistant. And I remember some of my friends joking, because they would be like, how do you know that person? And, it might be somebody who may not necessarily have been popular. And it would be like, why do you know them? And I'm like, because I get to know people and I advocate on people's behalf in this position as a resident assistant. And so I truly believe that advocacy came from my involvement in undergrad. I can also admit, due to my genetics, I have never been shy. And so if I needed to advocate for myself, I was going to do that. But I would also advocate for individuals who weren't as confident in advocating for themselves. If I had a relationship with them and I may be in a situation with them and they needed some level of advocacy, I'm typically going to do that even until this day. So I think that it was likely sparked during my undergraduate experience, which has led to many of the positions that I've had in higher education, which has required me to advocate for diverse student populations.
That's awesome. And I can honestly say that, in high school, I remember being a freshman, and I remember you would always say hi to me, and I was like, how does she know? I would know nobody. And you would always speak like you were an upperclassman, because that was the year you were graduating. And I remember at prom you had the jean outfit on, and it was big deal in Flint. And like our proms, okay? I'll tell you, marching around.
They were a big deal. They were a big deal.
Yeah,
they were.
Yeah. And so I'm not gonna say the year because I'm not aging nobody, y'all. But anyway, I remember, and I was like, she is one of the best dressed because number one, she thought outside of the box, and nobody else had her outfit. And I was like, see, that's what I'm talking about. And you know what? I can honestly say that when I graduated, and my prom, nobody had my dress either. So great minds think alike. We didn't want to look like nobody. Yes. So I can remember that, and I know for a fact that like she, for me, she always stood out because she was one of the upperclassmen that always would speak. She treated people equally, and I'm just like, that's what's up. And there was other people that would speak too, but I remember her. And I always tell people, like, in life, you never know where you're gonna go. Absolutely. You never know how people make you feel. And I always remember people who made me feel some kind of way, meaning like people who treated me right. And I always look back and like, you know what? And the ones that didn't treat me right, no, that doesn't matter. But anyway, God bless them. But but the ones who did treat me right, I always, it's like, I remember. You always remember how a person made you feel.
That's true.
And I can say that as a freshman coming in, I was like, okay, Laquala, okay. Yeah. And so she always was,
everybody might not have that same story, D. So I appreciate that. But yeah, because in high school, I really think that, I made some great connections. I still have a number of people that I'm friends with from elementary, middle, and high school. And so I have some remarkable relationships that I was able to establish in Flint. But I mean, we were kids, and I can't say in every instance that I was necessarily the nicest person. But it was really based on particular interactions that may have occurred while we were in school. But getting into college is when I truly matured. And I remember making a Facebook post years ago where I apologized to anybody who may have been on my friends list that I may have mistreated. And, that takes maturity and growth to understand, because in those instances in middle school and high school, like, we were kids. And petty things happened unnecessarily. And so you look back at some of those things and it's like, that wasn't even worth the time or energy. It took that in order for us to develop as individuals.
Amen. And that takes a big person to do that, because a lot of people can't do that. And so that speaks highly of yourself and who you are and how you were raised, because everybody was not raised that way. And sadly. And for the people that do, have that same stance, thank you, Jesus. Continue to have that, because we need that. Literally, like, if I'm wrong, I'm going to say I'm wrong about stuff. And even if I don't remember what I did wrong, I'll still say I apologize for how I behaved, how I made a person feel. I take accountability, and I expect that from other people. But however, that doesn't always happen. So I have to, forgive and hope that they will be the bigger person or whatnot. So what pivotal moments in your academic and professional journey reinforced your commitment to higher education?
Pivotal moments. I would say obtaining my PhD was definitely pivotal. It was a goal that my dad dreamed of acquiring and never completed the task. I actually remember when I was hired at Jackson State, my direct supervisor and then the vice president of our area called me into the office, and they said, we want you to know that you're going to start your PhD next year. Both of them had terminal degrees. And I said no, because this was my first year at Jackson State. And I said, no, I'm not doing that. I said, I plan to get a PhD, but I'm still adjusting. I'm learning. And they were like, well, we're really not asking you. We're telling you that you're starting your PhD next year. And I was like, oh my goodness. And I actually saw one of them probably about 4 months ago. And I told him, I said, I'm really happy you all forced me into a PhD program, because I probably would have put it off and kept saying, oh, I'm going to get this, I'm going to get this, because I am very goal oriented. And so I was going to complete my PhD. It was just a matter of when I would actually start the process. And so being able to have, and I believe that I've had this since I was younger, I've had an exceptional village. I've never had to go through a lived experience alone, including my educational journey, even though most of my family didn't necessarily go to college. And many of them will even make comments when we're in spaces, because I'm also connected to some ignorant people. Not ignorant, like not smart, because they are smart, but they say some of the wildest things. And so even in those spaces with my family, with some of my friends, I'm like, no, we have to unlearn so many things, because so many things are embedded in us as we're growing up, in our backgrounds, and we can feel defeated depending upon our lived experiences, our surrounding, the societal expectations. Like, all of those things play a part in what we actually achieve, depending upon how you allow those to impact your decisions. And so if I choose to speak this way in a certain setting, that's my choice. And then if I choose to turn that off and have a different conversation otherwise, that's okay too. But again, I had a village from the beginning, and I've had that throughout my whole life. And so I'm thankful for that. So I would definitely say acquiring my terminal degree. And my goal was to do that before the age of 35, which I was able to accomplish. So I did reach that goal.
Amen.
Because I'm a firm believer, and that's not to say that everybody needs to have a degree, but there has to be some type of credentials that align with the path you are seeking. And so that doesn't mean that you have to go to college, but that may mean that you need a trade, or you need some type of training courses that are going to prepare you for your career path, to show individuals that you're credible. And so that's definitely my pivotal moment, because regardless as to what career or position that I choose to take, no one will ever be able to take my degree from me. And even if I were to be terminated or lose a job, I have my degree to fall back on, my professional experience, and the relationships that I've been able to build.
Amen. And that's the beautiful thing about it. Like, we work so hard. You work so hard to get that degree. And the thing that really gets me is when individuals do not want to call you doctor at work. Well, this has nothing to do with what they're doing. It does not matter. That person has a doctorate degree, and you need to call them doctor. Some people, unless they say no. But my thing is, I still say it. I say doctor. Like, even, for instance, I since graduated, I still recognize Dr. Boyd. Dr. Boyd Springer. I said Dr. Boyd Jeffrey. Ooh, please forgive me when you watch this, ma'am. So yeah, because she's since remarried. So Dr. Boyd Springer. So it's just our respect. Just like Dr. Willis. I just called, and my cousin, she got her doctorate. I remember her having a post about this. And you work hard to get those credentials.
Absolutely.
You have to write a dissertation. People don't understand the blood, sweat, and tears that goes into these degrees. And I'll just say one thing. Biggest pet peeve, when someone say, oh, you're little, don't do it. Don't do it. It ain't nothing little about what I've accomplished. Like, that's rude. It's like, basically, you can go get a degree or do something too. Why are you doing that? So yeah, I'm big on that. Like, call people by their appropriate titles. I mean, I'm big on that. Pronounce people's name properly.
Correct.
Oh, well, it doesn't matter. No, it does matter, because that's their name. Oh, well, it was close enough. It doesn't matter. Pronounce those names right.
That's really something that I experience quite often. And people are like, well, what is your name? And I'm like, Laquala. And they're like, well, what do people call you for short? Laquala. because we're not friends. Laquala.
Exactly.
Yes, and every young woman that I meet that has a unique name, I make it very clear to them. You need to make sure you correct every person that mispronounces your name because that's your brand. A lot of people don't realize your name is your brand. And so there is definitely something attached to your name when it's said, regardless as to the setting. There's definitely a reputation attached to your name.
How do you stay inspired? Oh, hold on. That's going a little bit far into it. That's some of the last ones. Ooh, okay. You talked about that. So you have over 16 years in higher education. What have been some of your most defining milestones in your career? And what challenges did you face on your path to earning your doctorate, your doctoral degree? And how did you overcome them?
That's loaded. Okay, let's see.
Sorry.
So, thank you, Linda.
That's my mom.
Let's see. You said milestones.
Mm-hmm.
What's the other layers of it, D? I'm sorry.
No, we can start with this one. So okay. with over 16 years in higher education, what have been some of the most defining milestones in your career?
So when I graduated with my master's, my first professional position in higher education was in Georgia, and I absolutely loved being in the Atlanta area. I was out a little further at one point, and I said, no, I want to be closer to the city. Absolutely love the time that I spent in Georgia. However, the professional settings that I was in, I just didn't feel were the best fit for me. And I wonder, like, excuse me. Mm-hmm. I was like, is this really the field for me? And I actually found out because I said, let me go ahead and get out of this field. Maybe it's not for me. And then that's when I became a social worker. I became a child protective services worker, and seeing some of the horrible and horrific conditions that some of those children were facing and experiencing, it was a lot. And I said, no, let me get back over with the college students, because in most instances, they want to be in these settings. And so that's when I applied for a position at Jackson State that my supervisor at that time that hired me allowed me to get back into the field. He trusted my leadership skills and has served as a mentor and has become family. And so getting back into the field of higher education after taking a 2-year break, that was probably one of my milestones, becoming a dean at a young age. It was highly motivating, but also it was empowering to our students, because they would be like, you too young to be a dean. And I'm like, no, goals don't have an age. That's what I often tell my students. Goals do not have an age. Amen. And don't allow anybody to tell you or attempt to restrict your mindset in terms of what you can accomplish and when you want to accomplish it. You set your own goals. So I would definitely say that would be one of the monumental moments, is when I actually became a dean. And so at this point, I've been a dean over 11 years. That's so awesome. Having that experience has not been easy, because I definitely have had some difficult situations stemming from some of our students' experiences. However, it's been very rewarding overall.
Amen. And then the second question, what challenges did you face on your path to earning your doctoral degree? And how did you overcome them?
The challenge is completing a doctoral degree. Because, I mean, people really don't understand the magnitude of. I remember first starting my program. At that point, I may have had probably about 6 years of experience in higher education. And so I remember writing my first paper in my doctoral program. Again, remember, I love writing. Writing is nothing. You give me a topic and I can roll. So I'm writing this paper and you can't tell me nothing. Because I write what I do. And so I remember I got my paper back and my professor was like, okay, Laquala, we're aware that you have experience in the field, but we don't care. It's like, what do you mean you don't care? Like, you don't care. And so he was like, it's not that I don't care in that sense, but I need you to redirect your focus because your writing at this level needs to be supported with data and research. And I'm like, ooh, that's a different ball game. And so that can be difficult because if you're in the field that you're studying, it's just easy to revert to your comfort zone because you've interacted. My PhD is in higher education. And so I've interacted with so many students. I could likely give an example. If you give me a topic, I can give you an example or an experience that I've had with a student that I can relate to whatever topic that may be, like specific information. But so that was very difficult to have to adjust and step outside of my comfort zone. And in the end, you're really at the will of your faculty members through a terminal degree. And so if they say put a semicolon somewhere and you think it's silly, that semicolon has to go there. The period has to go in the middle of the sentence, even if it's not supposed to be placed there. But if they tell you that has to go there, it has to go there, or you won't complete your program. And so that could be difficult as well for people who have power struggles and may think they know everything, but it's a part of the process. And so that was definitely difficult to adjust to a different type of writing, as well as the humbling experience of having the professional trajectory within the field, but having to learn a different aspect of the field.
And can you share your experience spearheading Jackson State's partnership with NASPA and the impact it had on the students?
Absolutely. That experience was very exciting. When I submitted the application for us to host the Institute, I remember during the application process, I was just outdone at the fact because I'm a member of NASPA, which is one of the primary student affairs organizations. There are really 2 or 3, it's not very many, that are focused on student affairs. It's a number of higher education organizations. However, in learning that at that time, the conference had never been hosted at an HBCU. And I just thought that was very alarming, considering that HBCUs are historical. And so when I interviewed for the application process, I was explaining to the committee the importance of getting into the field and understanding that historically white institutions are not the only institutions that exist. We have to acknowledge the Hispanic serving institutions. We have to acknowledge the HBCUs because these organizations were founded when these historically underserved populations couldn't necessarily attend a PWI, or there were limited admission quotas that existed that wouldn't allow these historically underserved populations to be admitted. And so we can't dismiss history regardless as to who's in certain positions and making decisions. History speaks for itself. And so I was just rather excited to be selected as the host institution and for the group that attends Dungy, they are diverse. And so, of course, there were white undergraduate students, there were Black undergraduate students, Hispanic students, and they were so excited because I may be a little biased. And to be clear, I have worked at and attended historically white institutions as well as an HBCU. There is no culture like an HBCU college culture. It's incomparable. And so those students coming onto campus who had never been to an HBCU campus, they were so excited. They were able to interact with some of the Greek population, some of the band. They were able to see historic spaces within the city of Jackson. I mean, it was a remarkable experience. And they made it very clear in the evaluation, like, we really need to incorporate HBCUs more consistently for this population. And so, yes, it was an exciting few days for the faculty, staff, as well as the students.
That's awesome. How has your background in social work influenced your approach to student affairs and advocacy?
Again, I feel like I've always cared about the well-being of people. And as I've grown, I just think that is one of my passions. It's something that I value just from a humane standpoint. I mean, it's a lot of people who don't necessarily care about other people, and that's fine. But I don't operate in that space, just in knowing that I haven't been able to get from point A to point B without someone else. I don't align my thought process with the whole self-made, because I'm not. There are so many people who I've connected with who have been able to advocate on my behalf in my absence. There are people who have given me opportunities because of who I may be related to, who I may have a friendship with, who may have provided guidance for me at some point in my life and served as a mentor or part of my village. And so I would never say that I was self-made, because I've never been by myself. And so I just have that natural instinct to care about other people and be able to serve as a liaison if I can. I may not necessarily have the answer, but I'm connected to amazing people in various fields. And so I'm always the person like, oh, wait, at the different schools where I'm working, they're like, oh, I'm looking for an internship. Well, career services might not necessarily have a connection to certain industries. And I'm like, okay, let me go through my connections list. Who's in this field? Who's in that field? Let me connect you to this person, see if they may be able to assist you. And so I just like being a connector when I can be, regardless of whether it's a resource or an educational opportunity.
That's awesome. So navigating education and the educational, well, higher education in general, but higher education administration as a Black woman, what did that look like for you? Like, I know that obviously there's been some obstacles, and how did you strive to break the barriers in the academia and leadership roles?
I don't know if I've necessarily broken the barriers because it continues to be barriers. As Black people in general, we often have to work harder than our counterparts. And even when we have more credentials, more experience, we can see individuals getting into roles who are incompetent, who lack education, who lack experience, but they're in those roles. And so ultimately, one thing that I definitely have learned, because some people will say, it's really not about what you know, but it's who you know. And actually, one of my mentors told me it's actually not about who you know. It's about who knows you and the work that you can do and how productive you can be in that work. And I said, that is absolutely true. Because you can know a lot of people, but those people may not be able to connect you or position you to be in certain spaces. And so it's definitely about who knows you and the work that you are capable of doing. And so, yeah, the barriers are continuously being broken. But unfortunately, right now, I do feel that we're in a space where it's still continuous obstacles due to leadership in various capacities. And there are limitations. For instance, right now in the states of Florida, Georgia, and Texas in higher education, it's rather difficult. Specifically in a couple of those states, it's been very clear that the words DI cannot necessarily be used on college campuses, depending upon the system in which they are serving. That can be rather difficult at an institution of higher learning because regardless of the institution type, you're educating a group of diverse students. Diversity doesn't end at your race. There are levels of diversity. And so we have to think about family backgrounds. We have students who are from foster care systems. They may have been adopted. We have students who have food insecurities, home insecurities. They're homeless. And so diversity stems far beyond race. And understanding that there may be some accessibility barriers that exist for students. Taking away the terminology can potentially make a student feel they aren't valued. And so while certain individuals can feel that we need to take these things away because everything needs to be equal, absolutely, in an ideal world, that would be great. However, in many instances, we do have to be able to advocate for those historically underserved populations in order for them to get the resources that they need. And so ultimately, to sum up this answer, the barriers will us being able to combat the barriers as Black women in higher education, the work continues. We have to continue on a daily basis to advocate for ourselves because we are underrepresented at institutions of higher learning in order to be able to empower other individuals, regardless of their race. When individuals see people that are able to be successful, specifically people of color, they are likely to be motivated to be successful as well.
And that is so true. And that segues into there was a psychiatrist by the name of Chester Pierce. He was actually the Black individual that made sure that on Sesame Street we had people that represented us, Black people and Hispanic people. So I believe
Maria was my girl on Sesame Street. Maria.
Yep, Maria was. And so because of that, he made sure that part of his hidden curriculum was to make sure that Black individuals, Black kids, and other minority groups had that representation because we are disadvantaged systemically. We live in those inner cities. So he said, you know what? I'm going to show you that we have Black people that look like this, Hispanic people that have these jobs. It's going to be very positive oriented, not negative oriented. We're not going to give negative stereotypes. And so thank God for him for doing that, because I mean, that was very important to do that. And that's why a lot of the guests that came on the show, you had, I want to say Arthur Ashe was on there. You had Lena Horne was on there, Alicia Keys, Destiny Childs. They made sure to show us that. Shows like Reading Rainbow. I mean, you had LeVar Burton on there. I mean, those type of things matter. Representation matters, people. That's why it's important to have that, like to pour into your kids when they're young. And it's okay if they want to major in art or whatever. That's fine. You love them and you pour into them. And I can actually say that I had that with my grandmother. She would always make sure I seen somebody that looked Black. she would always make sure that's a Black doctor. You see that man right there? That's Arthur Ashe. He plays tennis. You see that guy on television? He's a singer. That's such and such. You could be that person. She would always point the finger at that person. That could be you. That could be you. So when I heard somebody tell me, it was so funny in Atlanta, oh, why do you think like that? What do you mean? Why do I think like that? Because I know I can be great because it was poured inside of me. So when I hear people thinking that they can't be, I'm like, I don't know that life. And I don't want to know that because I know I can be great. I know that I'm awesome because I had somebody that poured into me endlessly and told me that. And so, I remember one time I came home, my head held down from elementary school. She was like, you need to, don't ever come in this house like that ever. You are somebody, and I don't care what how that person made you feel. You're gonna always have your head held high. And so that's just something that I know and believe. And so we have to pour into people and show that representation. That representation starts with ourselves by getting in these positions. And also, like W.E. Du Bois said, the talented 10. We are the talented 10% that has to pay it forward, that has to make sure that, guess what, you're a doctor, you're a Black doctor. Guess what? You need to make sure that there are other Black students that are going into the field that have that aspiration and get into the field, and you do what you have to do to get them in and show them the way. If you don't know the answer, you find somebody that knows the answer. As attorneys, as engineers, you find somebody, you mentor them, you pay it forward. And we are people that are still doing that. Some of us aren't, because some of us got in these positions and we forget where we came from. And oh well, guess what? Somebody didn't help me, so I'm not helping so and so. So if I had that type of attitude, I wouldn't even be where I'm at right now, because there's been tons of people that, discouraged me, treated me like I was less than. But at the end of the day, I am not them. I choose to be who I am, because I'm not going to allow you to break my soul and my spirit. Because had I become that person, become that bitter person, I wouldn't be who I am. So you have to take into yourself and say, you know what? I'm not going to be that person. I'm not going to be the person that they became, that they took from people and they deterred and made sure that somebody didn't get something. I'm not going to be that. I'm going to be better than that. I'm going to show people the way and I'm going to guide them. And that's why mentorship is so important. No matter where you are in life, I don't care how old you are, you need a mentor your whole life. I can honestly say that I've had mentors from every part of my life that have told me, hey, you do this, you could do that. And so the next question, I'm skipping questions. Who has been your most influential mentors, and how have they shaped your journey? And as you being someone who mentors students and young professionals, what do you believe makes a great mentor? And I believe you touched on some of that already in terms of when you spoke on your doctoral degree and how individuals told you to get it and poured that into you. And also with different leadership where they talked about how it's not about who you know, it's about we touched about that.
Who knows you?
You, because at the end of the day, people could know you, but they might not be able to help you. And some people don't help people because they feel like you're gonna get more than them. And that's sad. So so yeah, those two questions. So who have been your most influential mentors, and how have they shaped your career? I mean, your journey.
I can't say that one person has been more influential than another. I can say that I had a mentor in graduate school. It was a white woman that I still have a great relationship with. And she made it very clear to me, I've never been a Black woman, but I want to make sure that you're successful, and I want to make sure that I'm providing resources to you that you're going to need in this field. And I appreciated that. She was actually the person who encouraged me, because she actually completed research when I was job searching. And she said, let me tell you something. Atlanta is the best place right now Now this is like early 2000s. She was like, Atlanta is the best place right now for you to go as a young Black professional. And I was like, I don't want to go to Atlanta. It's too many Flint people down there.
It is. You're not telling a lie. You're not telling a lie.
I remember telling her, I was like, I am not interested in Atlanta, Georgia. Out of all of the cities in the world, I'm not interested. And so she was like, Laquala, I want you to just to look at some of the opportunities. And I'm like, okay. And I actually got to Atlanta, and like I said earlier, had a ball. Some of the best years of my life. And I was connecting with people from Flint, but in reality, in those types of large cities, I learned that you really only have to see the people that you know when you want to. It's more of an intentional effort, so you don't have to see them all the time. So she definitely was influential in terms of a mentor. But even navigating the field as a Black woman, I have another mentor who is a vice president in the field of higher education. And she made it very clear to me, like, Laquala, you're going to have to make some decisions throughout your career. While you might be comfortable, sometimes you have to identify whether you need to grow in that space or if you need to go. And I was like, whew, that can be tough. Because again, when we get in our comfort zones, it's that level of comfort. You know the basis, you know how to maneuver in particular spaces, and you don't necessarily want to move out of that comfort zone. However, there can be an abundance of growth, an abundance of opportunity outside of our comfort zones. And many of us we aren't able to actually reach that pinnacle of our success because we get stuck and we get complacent. And we're like, no, I'm good here. I'm doing this here. And we can roll off our accolades and all of the things when ultimately that space is preparing you for greater. And so I just want to encourage people, don't get complacent. Now, that doesn't mean that you're supposed to get a new job every year. And to be clear, if you need to, you can until you reach a level of peace, because I don't believe in staying in a space that can drive you insane. But on the flip side, if it is allowing you an opportunity to grow, and you're there for, a few years, and you feel that you've established the professional skill set that you need to move forward, step out of your comfort zone and look for something else that could potentially advance you, that can increase your salary, can increase your resources, increase your professional opportunities. And yeah, step out of your comfort zone. I'm definitely an advocate for that as well.
Amen. Okay, as someone who has mentored students and young professionals, what do you believe makes a great mentor?
With any relationship, there has to be a level of trust and transparency, because of course, if you're having conversations about professional development, I don't need you to tell me what you think I want to hear. If we're actually trying to work through barriers or obstacles that you're having professionally, we have to truly talk about those things. And sometimes that means that we have to look at some of the challenges we might have internally. I tell people often, I had to work to be a professional. Like, I really had to work to be a professional. Because in professional settings, it's certain expectations depending upon the industry. And so certain industries may not interest certain people, and that's okay. But there are certain expectations when you get in certain roles. There are certain things, and I don't even mean in terms of not necessarily wearing a suit, but I'm going to put this out there too. For instance, just because you have natural hair, that doesn't mean you shouldn't comb your hair when it's time to get out the bed and go somewhere. I have a problem with that, because being someone who has natural hair, I'm an advocate for that as well. And I think that you should wear the hair that grows out of your head to go to work. I don't think that you have to straighten your hair or you have to align with those expectations. However, in terms of having a clean and neat appearance, Like, you can tell when somebody actually put effort into their appearance. Again, that's not saying that you have to have a suit on every day. There is a way to dress professionally and have a neat appearance. And I just think sometimes people try to discount and use the Eurocentric expectations of professionalism as an excuse to say, oh, they're trying to stop me from being who I am. No, that doesn't have to be the case. But if you're appearing in spaces that are embarrassing, regardless as to how you identify, it's certain things that are embarrassing. And I have to even tell my students now, because I tell them all the time, regardless as to the institution where I worked, if I'm not preparing you for life after graduation, I'm not doing my job. And so I recently had a student to show up. He's Hispanic. So again, this has nothing to do with race. He put his do-rag on at the front desk. No, sir, you're going to take that do-rag off. Now, when you get off of work, you can put that back on, but you're not going to sit at the front desk of this office with this do-rag on. We're not doing that. You're not going to be able to wear that do-rag in your place of employment. I even remember having a conversation with a young lady at my beloved HBCU. And the attire that she was wearing, I mean, it was very revealing. We had a dress code. And so as the dean, it was my responsibility, along with some of our other campus partners, to address students. And I remember going up to her, I put her to the side, I told her who I was. And I said, I just want you to know you aren't dressed appropriately and you're not in compliance with our dress code. And she was like, why? We in college. We should be able to wear whatever we want to. I said, you can when you're going to social events off campus. I said, because let me tell you something. You couldn't wear what you have on to any workplace. And she said, well, what if I wanted to be a stripper? I said, let's talk about it. I said, have you ever actually been to a strip club? She did. I said, have you ever been to a strip club? I mean, not really. Okay, let's talk about it. I said, I want you to go to a strip club. I guarantee you, when you see the strippers walk in the building, they have clothes on. They change into the attire that they use to strip for the audience. They don't walk in. They don't walk in with that on. No, because there's an expectation that you are dressed appropriately for your profession. They don't walk in there like that. I mean, she was in disbelief that I even knew that. But those are the types of conversations that we have to have from a developmental standpoint of our young people, because these are life skills. And so just, again, we say it takes a village to raise a child, but I also believe it takes a village for us to survive as adults.
Amen.
Because I can admit, I feel like my parents made adulthood and parenting look so easy. It looks so easy. And now that I'm in this space as a wife, as a mother, as a professional, I'm like, how did they do this? Right. So just being able to have that village to pour into one another based on the strengths that we actually possess is so important.
Amen. Like, literally, people do think that at HBCUs you can just wear what you want to wear. You can't, people. I'm here to tell you, you do that, there's a decorum. I had so my mentor, Dr. Sharon J. Willis, I will remember this. I was originally a music major. This young lady came in with some attire that was very ratchet. She told her to leave. She got mad. And at the end of the day, it was what it was. And I remember people would say, like, oh, I don't like her. And I was like, I like her. It was something about her that woman is the reason why I am in so many spaces, because number one, she understood me. She gave me scholarships or whatever. I mean, thank you so much. She literally, and I understood, and that stuff didn't offend me, because at the end of the day, you are in college. You shouldn't be having anything showing because you are leading into what you are to become. So yes, there were some times when I had on some pajama pants in lecture. Yes, I did. Pajama pants. I had stuff covered up. I had my hoodie. I sure did. It'd be hot sometimes. I had on my hoodie. You couldn't tell me never was on flip flops.
And see, I was sending students back to their rooms if they lived on campus. You are not wearing those pajama pants to class. And they got to the point where they were like, here come Dean Dixon. You better go change. Absolutely, because you're not going to class looking like that. The pajamas are for the residence hall. Keep those pajamas in the residence hall. Wherever you live, keep them in there.
And you're right, because like in the school of business, you could not do that. You couldn't do that.
No.
I remember my former roommate got sent. They gave her a D, and she asked me why she got a D. I said, "You want to know why you got a D? They're not gonna tell you why, but you always went to go get a smoothie, and you had your breast all out all the time, and that's why you got a D, because you wasn't studying and doing what you need to do. You was partying with the bros at Morehouse. That's why you got a D." And I remember one time she was like, "All you do is study." I said, "Yeah, that's what I'm in college for." And she was like, "You don't never get." I said, "But what's really funny is that I really didn't have to study that much. I mean, I got some books, if that, but I did." Some of us, we just got it like that. We could look at it a little bit and do what we need to do. But anyway, so I was being a little bit pretentious, but yeah, but at the end of the day, she's a fashion minor too and a business major. And I was like, every time I see you at Jasmine's getting a smoothie, your class starts before mine. And I'm in here like an hour or something early, and you always late to your class. So that's why you got a D. And she was like, "No." I said, "I'm telling you, they're not going to tell you. But if you ask them, I'm pretty sure he's going to specify some things that went into you getting that grade." And so it was amazing. I mean, I just know, like in the lecture halls, they didn't tell people like they couldn't come up in there with pajamas. As long as you look neat and you didn't smell, you were good. But you weren't doing that in the school of business. You had to dress in that suit because that's what you're going into. Now majors, like, I mean, I think criminal justice, we had it easy. We could wear what we want to wear. Music, we wear what we want to wear. Fashion, but you still had to have a decorum about yourself. You could not have all of this out and be looking ratchet. They're gonna send you home because number one, is disrespectful and it's inappropriate and it's stopping the class from functioning because you got men in the class looking at all of this and stuff, and they not learning. So you disrupting the class with your foolishness. And
now what I will, because I disagree with that component because it's not my fault that you're distracted. I need you to focus because I truly believe that people should be able to wear what they choose to wear. But understanding that there's a time and a place. And that's what I try to tell the students that I work with. You can wear those clothes somewhere else, just not to class. You won't necessarily be able to wear it to work, depending upon your profession, and not in, academic buildings. Now, when you're in your residence hall, your living space, that's like you're at home. So that's different. And so just learning time and place is what I really try to reiterate to students.
Yeah, I agree.
When you go to the party, you want to be dressed a certain way because it's going to get hot. And so in those places, that's when you can put those clothes on, when you go to the parties and the social events.
That's true. That is true. That's true. Me, myself, I'm speaking on a level of like, I think it's inappropriate for women to be dressed that way. And these men are married and engaged. Because, the ideal college students, some of these people are a little bit older now. Maybe they married at a younger age. And even at work, it is inappropriate for you. Like, as I'm going to tell you, in the government, oh my God, people have the girls out. I mean, tight outfits, stuff that they should not be wearing. It's inappropriate
for work.
And you are around grown men and who are married have respect. They don't have no respect. Some of these people don't. And this, it's unfortunate. And they think it's acceptable. And they'll tell you, well, I already got my 15. I already got my money. I could do what I want. I get that you got tenure, but you still need to have respect and decorum. And they don't care. Like, you can argue with them all day. They don't care. They're gonna wear. I seen somebody have on some gold lame. So for y'all don't know what gold lame is, that's like the stuff they wore in the 70s or the 80s. Mm-hmm. Leggings. Some gold leggings.
So I don't think that anyone should feel like they have to dress out of respect for someone else. That respect has to come from within.
True.
And so it has to be a level of respect for yourself. And again, being mindful of the setting that you plan to enter. Because I mean, there are certain spaces where you may be able to dress a certain way that doesn't necessarily align with the expectations of a work environment. And so just being able to adapt is very important.
True. That's true. And so getting into that, let's see. With such an impressive career and ongoing research, how do you maintain the balance between work, research, and personal life?
I was having a conversation with one of my friends last month, actually, and we were talking about the whole work-life balance theme. And she mentioned how the perspective should really be work-life harmony. And I said, you are absolutely right, because for me, speaking for me, I can only speak for me, I haven't been able to find that balance. And so the word harmony really spoke to me, because there may be times where there are certain demands with my career, depending upon the time of year, depending upon traditional events on whatever campus where I may be working. And so there are going to be certain demands for my career. In the end, my family is going to come first. And so if I need to make particular sacrifices to make sure that they are my first priority, that's what's going to happen. But life happens too. And so when things are happening in life, again, I'm an advocate for using your paid time off. If you know that time doesn't roll over to the next year, you need to use it, because that job is going to be there. And sometimes people get in spaces where they feel like, well, if I'm not here, it's not going to get done. That's okay. They'll figure it out. As a hiring manager, it's our responsibility to make sure we have staffing structures in the event that people are absent. It's not your responsibility if you're not a hiring manager. And even if you are, you likely report to someone. It's their responsibility to make sure that job is covered in your absence. And so, again, I've never gotten to the balance, but I've embraced what my friend mentioned in terms of the harmony, just in terms of prioritizing what I need to prioritize in any given moment between my professional career and personal life.
And that was great. I'm gonna move it to the journal article, The Understanding of Interlocking Oppressive Systems Within Higher Education Restricting the Professional Progression of Black Women. And this is I'm saying dissertation. Yeah, this was part of the dissertation, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, this was a journal article during my professional career.
Okay, so not the dissertation. So this delves into systemic barriers that hinder Black women's advancement in academia, interlocking systems of oppression, how racism and sexism converge uniquely to impede Black women's career progression in higher education, institutional barriers, what specific policies or practices within academic institutions disproportionately affect Black women and how it can be reformed, support mechanisms, like what role do mentorship and programs and professional networks play in counteracting these oppressive systems, personal narratives, how do Black women's personal experiences highlight the challenges posed by these interlocking systems and recommendations for challenge. What actionable steps can institutions take to dismantle these barriers and promote equity? And that was just the main points I got from the information that I looked up on the article. So for everybody at home, that is what the article is about. You can go and find it and read up on it, but that is the main points of it. If I missed something, please let me know. But the article, it provides a comprehensive analysis of the systemic challenges Black women face in academia and offers insights into creating a more equitable environment. And you touched on that a lot. So that answered a lot of the questions. And that's why I set the questions up the way I did, because it answered a lot of questions, because I know people want to know that. And so with the whole the work-life balance, how do you stay hold on, where did it go? The burnout. Where's my question about burnout? I know I had a burnout question. Oh yeah. How do you stay motivated and avoid burnout in such a demanding field?
It depends. And I say it depends because in the field of higher education, a lot of people really don't know what we do in a lot of instances for a long time. Some of my family members just thought I was still in college. They didn't realize, like, no, this is truly my career. I've had to navigate the death of students, including an accidental shooting of a student on campus. And I had to be the individual to contact the family to let them know that their child was deceased. That was one of the worst days of my career. In addition to some of the other incidents that I've encountered with the death of a student, whether that might have been an automobile accident or shootings, depending upon where the students may have resided on different breaks that we might have. And so mental health is a pressing concern right now. Some of the mental health barriers that students are facing, just in terms, again, of their backgrounds, them coming into spaces. Some college students are coming from the inner city and spaces where they have resistance to law enforcement. And so when you get on these college campuses and you already have a mindset or a resistance to authority, it's difficult to adjust. So in terms of burnout, I said it depends because it's definitely contingent upon what's currently going on in my work life at that time. And so if there are definitely true demands that are very stressful, because there are certain stresses that you can manage, then there are certain stressors that can impact your mental health depending upon our lived experiences. And so there can be triggers for certain situations, even on college campuses. Of course, we have to provide resources to students who might experience sexual misconduct, sexual assault. And so if there's an administrator who has had a similar experience personally, that can be a trigger for this administrator. But that administrator also has to be able to respond based on their individual role. And so for me, it depends on the specific situations, the specific time sensitive circumstances that may be occurring at a certain time. I'm going to use my leave. And so if that means extending a weekend, even if I'm not actually going somewhere, not actually being on campus or involved in a campus related activity, I'm going to disconnect and I'm going to do something that makes me happy, makes me relax. And that's definitely how I'm going to make sure that I attempt to avoid burnout. In some situations, it might not necessarily be that easy.
Amen. And so, what self care or time management strategies do you swear by?
So I have to admit I don't have the best self-care right now having a toddler. And
Aw.
so I don't. I feel like I did better before I became a parent. But again, these are some of the things that aren't necessarily talked about as professional women. And so, yeah, I don't feel that I've done the best because for me, self-care is not going to get my hair done or my nails done. Those are personal choices. And that's not self-care for me. Self-care for me is me being able to be by myself and relax for a little bit. And I don't get much of that time. That's self-care for me. For me to be able to relax and not have distractions, that is my self-care. And so I don't get that much these days. So yeah, and I'm not doing a great job of that.
You're not alone with that because, like, I've been trying to get better with mine. Like, what I do, I have to be by myself. But I think it's one of those things where, as a tourist, I've navigated that well. Like, I'm gonna be by myself, and people would get mad, like, you don't answer. I said, look, ain't nothing wrong with me.
I'm
I
okay.
can be by myself. I'm an introvert. Okay. I like to go to concerts and stuff, but don't get it twisted. I like my privacy. I like my time to myself. I'll
Yes.
listen to my music, vibe.
Yes.
I'll go to a restaurant by myself and we'll be fine. I'll go to the movies by myself. I like, go to a spa or something. That when that ever happens, because I ain't been yet. So somebody tell me how that feels. I mean, I went to the net to get
It's
my nails
wonderful.
done.
You should definitely get a spa
Yeah, I
experience.
just got
For sure. For sure. Get a facial.
going out of town.
Get a facial, get a massage. I love traveling too. Yes, absolutely.
Definitely going out of town, even if it's a staycation, if it's a 4-day weekend, like I just left Philly. I went or whatnot, and I enjoyed my time in Philly.
Good.
That Chinese food was good. Look, I'm gonna go back and give you some more of that Chinese. Because the food in DC is so no. But the Chinese food was legit in Philly. I will be going back to that spot again. It was really good. But no, people, we gotta do our self-care, like whether it's like meditation, like different things like that. But yeah, you're not alone. I gotta get better with that, like because you can't pour from an empty cup.
That's true.
Like I'm always like doing stuff. And my mom has had to tell me, like, I had to recently turn down something because I was like, no, it's gonna impede upon what I want to do in terms of being great. So I had to say no. And I prayed about it. I said, it is what it is.
Absolutely.
So wrapping up into, let's see, I think that was the only, I think that was okay, affirmations. Do you have a personal mantra or affirmation that keeps you motivated?
Do what works best for you. I have, and I've said that a lot lately to some of my family members and friends.
Amen.
It's really easy for us to become distracted and impacted depending upon how you internalize information that you receive. And especially with social media being at our fingertips, it's easy for us to compare. And so really embracing the fact that your journey is unique to yourself, because you can log on to social media and compare yourself to someone that you may have known growing up or throughout college, or someone you may have worked with in the past. You don't know what they have gone through to get to where they are right now. And so being able to actually embrace your journey and make decisions based on what works best for you. Unfortunately, I feel I had a conversation with a young lady the other day because someone made a comment to her because she's entering her 30s, and they pretty much were like, you 30 and unmarried with kids? And I was like, and you're going to be fine. Because everybody doesn't necessarily want to be married. Everybody doesn't want to necessarily have kids. And I told her, I said, I was 30, unmarried, without kids, and was having the time of my life. And she was like, And then you got married and had a kid, and now you have it all. I'm like, I don't have it all. I'm thankful for what I do have, but
Amen.
pretty much embracing your journey, because what's intended for you will never miss you. And that's something
Amen.
that I've learned along the way. I'm thankful that I don't have a jealous spirit, because
Amen.
as I see people achieving goals and
Mhm.
finding the love that they desire, even before I was married, like I would be so excited when somebody who wanted to be married got married. If that's what you want to do and you're happy, I am happy for you.
Amen.
And I
Amen.
hope that happiness continues. Like I've never been a person like, oh, woe is me. I can't wait for it to be my turn. And I'm thankful that I've never felt that way. And so just embracing individual journeys and accepting where your journey may take you, because people don't even realize somebody is looking at you wishing that they had the life that they think you have based on whatever you may be
Yes.
suggesting. And so, yes, embrace your journey and identify
Amen.
what's going to work best for you.
Amen. I definitely agree. Like we can get caught up so much with social media, and it's
Mhm.
like you don't even know what that person had to
At
do
all.
to get that life. And some of that stuff is
Mhm.
not even real anyway. Some people
No,
live that soft life and fake life. Like when people
they
say fake life,
post
when
what
people
they
say
want
like,
you
"Oh
to
well,
know.
I'm doing this." Yeah, and somebody's
Mhm.
funding that for them. So it's like, how self-made
Mhm.
are you really? And then also
Mhm.
it's kind of like we have to get out of that whole notation of this is what has to be for everybody, because that might look perfect great for you, but it might not be what
Absolutely.
I need. I mean, my thing is, I guess, like, you know, be who you are and keep it moving. I don't know, but it's interesting.
Absolutely.
So educators, higher ed, and community enrichment. So of course, like we didn't get here. A lot of so for instance, with jobs, just so y'all know, a lot of people know this, but this is just the well, I don't want to say common sense, but there would not be a doctor, a nurse, an attorney, engineers, mathematicians, scientists,
Mhm.
singers, dancers, choreographers, journalists, public relations, actors, actresses, directors, producers, judges, researchers, social workers, inventors, astronauts, engineers, hairstylists, and makeup artists without teachers. Teachers and educators and support educators, supportive staff are the most underpaid whatsoever. And it's so unfortunate. Like people have been fighting this fight for a long, long time. And I hope they intend to keep fighting it to get things where they need to be. And they're the ones that, if literally, if it weren't for them, there would not be these people. They are what make these professions. You had to learn from
Mhm.
somewhere to do what you needed to do and how you should do it, the different protocols, the different licensures, and all that. You had to
Mhm.
prepare for that. And so this is I'm a so a lot of people shout out to like all my educators. So Chana, Santana, Alicia Durrett Love, my cousin Dr. Cordelia Noble. Let's see, my cousin Cheryl Noble Murdoch. And here goes some friends and peers, Tierra Jordan Sutton, Jeremy Simmons, Tanae Sims Roger, Lanisha Burnett, Gary Lee, Mike and Monet Smith, Candace Woodson, Amanda Kaufman, and Danica Wicker. All are educators. Y'all do something
Mhm.
within a community enrichment. Shout out to y'all. And shout out to myself, even though I took a break. But I was being a professor for a little bit. But they tried to get me again. I said, I need to take a break. But it takes a special person to step into these
Absolutely.
arenas. Everybody can't do that. Like
Absolutely.
literally, and I wouldn't be able to do that if it were not for the people that I like named before, and for your late father, like seeing him in that capacity and being able to teach with openness, teach with an open in an open space to allow people to be who they are and feel comfortable coming to me, telling me stuff. Some stuff I wasn't ready to hear. I'm still not ready to hear. But I've had students, a student came up to me and shared to me how she was dating this guy and he broke up with her and treated her poorly. And I told her, I said, so this is coming from somebody that's like an older sister, fine auntie or something. You don't need him. You'll be fine. Forget
The
him.
fine auntie.
You will be fine, older cousin. You will be fine. That little boy, and I called him a little boy. I was like, look, you don't need him. You're going to look back on this and laugh one day. And I tell you this because I've been that person. Somebody upset my spirits growing up. And I was like, no, I'm not going to ever. No, you're going to be fine. And so I had to like step into that and say like, wow, like, you know, because you have to step into that role model mode. Because I always tell people, I ain't trying to be no role model. And then when you actually get a certain role and you pour into people, I've had people ask me for recommendations. I've written recommendations for people to get into nursing school. It is so rewarding to see people get into their field and to know that they got into that field because you inspired them. Or I had people tell me like, I enjoyed your class. Like, I learned a lot about sociology. I like how you taught me. You didn't expect us to, you know, read everything word for word. You allowed us to tell it to us in our own way. And I appreciate that because it was hard sometimes. I mean, I got some crazy horror stories too. But I had a student try to fight me. I had to call the popo on her. Yeah. These are things that we go through as educators that people don't see. And yeah, so I just say, you know, anybody that's stepping into this world, just do it, have a passion for it, and also, you know, put God first or whoever you believe in, or if you don't believe, you know, just understand your whys for doing it. Excuse me, because if you know the whys for doing it, you'll always be fine. And so that's exactly why, you know, like the point of this whole platform, you know, having people who are uplifting, empowering, encouraging, and and you are the epitome of that. So that's why I have people, you're welcome, because it does make a difference to see people in that capacity. And I appreciate it because you take time out to do this, and we put time into this. And it's important. And hopefully people that are watching this, whatever field or whatever you're trying to get in, take something positive from this to go into the field that you want to go into and keep going at it. Even though you might feel like you want to give up, you still keep going because you will make it. It doesn't matter how old you are. You, as long as you graduate or, you know, get the trade that you want to, you develop some things, you will be great. And so you have some upcoming journal publications coming up. When will those? Well, you might not can talk about them. So when can we hear about them?
I'm not able to disclose
Gotcha.
until it's released. However, it is supposed to be within the next couple of months. Yes.
Congratulations.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
Yes. You're welcome. And so the business endeavors, the daddy's girl. So when can we look out for more t-shirts and more items?
We are going through a rebranding right now. The company was founded after my father's passing, and it was something that was near and dear to my heart. And so as I began speaking to people that I was connected with, I learned that there are a lot of daddy's girls out here. And so we're rebranding, and we hope, because with me having some new ventures otherwise, I haven't been able to spend as much time as I would like on the company, but we're hoping that we'll be able to relaunch the rebranding by the summertime.
And so is it going to be the same website as before?
Yes, it will be.
Okay. So I will put that on my page and stuff so y'all can look out for that. Most of y'all that are on Facebook, y'all that follow, y'all will see it, and y'all are
Yeah.
connected with her, so y'all will see that and support.
Now the
And
website
so,
is not currently active, D. The website is not active right now.
oh,
However, we are accepting orders if people would like. And so if there are preferences in terms of color, tank tops, t-shirts, sweatshirts, hoodies, the request can be submitted via email at daddy's girl company at gmail.com.
sounds good. And so thank you so much because it's 8:30. And I appreciate your time and thank you everybody for tuning in. And this has been great. And I hope that people remain encouraged in whatever pathway you may want to go into. And God bless everybody. And thank you again, too, for allowing me to have the opportunity to celebrate you. And
Thank
thank
you
you
for the
again. And I will
invitation. I
definitely have you
sincerely
back. You're welcome.
appreciate it.
I will definitely have you back for some other episodes in terms of education and or whatnot
Okay.
and different
Okay.
things in your expertise. Yep.
Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much.
everybody, for tuning in. You're welcome. Bye.
Have a great night.
You too. Thank you,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Bye.